Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. We're back on the Bermuda Locket. I know I've casted this a couple of times in the not so distant past, but I am running critically low on replays. Let me slow this down and give you guys a quick rundown. People are always asking me this question: how do I send replays to you? Well, you go to the FAF client, you go to the replays tab, you go to the local replays tab in that tab, and then you select the replay that you want to send. You right click it, show in folder, take that file and attach it to an email to the address in the description, and that will get that replay to me. I can watch it, evaluate it, maybe possibly cast it, depending on how turtly it is or what all is going on. And yeah, that is the circle of life through and through. The reason that you need to send that file in is because the replays in the FAF vault sometimes are corrupted. The ones in your folder have a much less chance of being corrupted. And right now the replay vault is not working, so I'm not able to dig up games like I typically do. It's a lot more difficult to come by replays. So please, if you have any that are any good, send them over to me, and I'm going to end my shameless plug for material right there. Let's go ahead and introduce the players. Dive into this game. As always on the Bermuda Locket, it's probably going to be in a little bit of an extended affair, so sit down, buckle up, maybe grab a drink. We'll see where it takes us. Stork is going Cybran. He is right at 1100 rank. Looks like he's got first land, second air, lots of P-gens, pretty typical build for the Bermuda Locket. On the south side, we've got Coding Squirrel, also first land and second air. He is UEF and sitting at about 1037 rank. I do believe this is a ladder game, so these are probably indicative of 1 versus 1 rankings. If so, these guys are very, very close and should be evenly matched. The biggest thing to remember about the Bermuda Locket is that you literally cannot build enough power. There is thousands and thousands upon thousands of reclaim in and around your base. Hundreds in these boulders around here. Tons in these little rocks that are worth 5 and 10 mass apiece. I mean, you can reclaim yourself into oblivion, past Kingdom Come, on into infinity, and never run out of rocks to reclaim. There's guys that typically crack 100,000 reclaim when they're getting the entire map down and also reclaiming some units that have been killed. So reclaim is critical. Power is more critical because you got to have the power to burn the reclaim. Stork is getting engineers out everywhere. He is spreading out to grab a couple rocks, a little bit of mana reclaim, scattering to grab the mass extractors, and that is one hell of a build queue. That little engineer right there is queued up for a grand total of 20 freaking mass extractors, while this one only is getting 2. Oh, 3. Okay. That does not seem like a well-distributed workload. You, sir, deserve a raise. On the south side, looks like we've got a little bit of the same, but we've got some factories going down here. We've got a few engineers picking some things up, but this is a much more assisted air factory build. We're going to see much earlier air from Coding Squirrel than we see from Stork. He's already cracking out his first interceptor, while the air factory is just starting to be built for Stork. If he's going for first... Nope, that is a bomber. I was about to say if he's going for bomber, but it is. I was mistaken. There is no interceptor there. He might be able to get up there, kill off an expansioneer before the opponent can get any interceptors out. Now, that would actually be a hard hit to take because there are no more engineers heading to this side. Only that one. So it's going to take forever to get another expansioneer over there. We do have some expansion going on there for Coding Squirrel. No more factories planned on... Oh, nope, I'm wrong. There's some factories planned. And I like this power grid. Loads and loads of power going down. This is definitely something that you're going to need in order to advance in this game. Early tech is not a bad idea. You have basically an infinite supply of mass, you just need the power. And once you get that T2 upgrade, whether it's on your ACU or a factory, who really cares? You're able to get some T2 P-gens and you're able to be much more efficient about building your economy. I'm surprised that there's no early drops going out for either of these guys. It's kind of weird. That bomber is just about across the map though, and I'm sure it's immediately going to be queued for an attack on that engineer, because that is the only engineer on this side. We've got 2 more coming in to build. Holy hell, that is a lot of factories. Engineer is going to go down. I thought it might have dodged because it started moving right when the bomber was dropping, but Nope, it's not meant to be. It is dead as a freaking doornail. There's also... Oh, I thought that was a... Is that a radar? That is a radar. That is not a mass extractor. So there's a radar going down there. Then the mechs, then 5 land factories. I can already foresee a problem, or it may actually be an indicator of the strategy coming later. There's 2 kills on that bomber, but there is an interceptor that is going to come and clean it up. I would not be surprised if Coding Swirl goes for some tech here. Many fewer land factories than his opponent has. He is definitely going to be overflowing mass, so he either needs to go heavy navy or heavy upgrades in order to burn all of the income that he's going to have. Up here, this looks like straight T1 spam to me. Like, I don't see this being anything else, because when you build 10 land factories on one side and 8, no, actually that's 7 and 9. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you build 9 on one side and 7 on the other, you're going to be building a lot of units. And that may be why he wasn't really worried about dropping, because he may be assuming, hey, I'm just going to overrun all of that with an unstoppable tide of Mantis. And, you know, he probably isn't wrong. We do have a drop coming from Coding Swirl, though. That's going to put 4 engineers down on this side. Those are immediately going to start building some more land factories. So that is going to clean up a little bit of that build power deficit. Nice to see there. Let's get a quick interceptor count. We have 2 paused air factory, 3 scouts. Not really going to do much on the air front. And we have 3 interceptors for Coding Squirrel. So he is 1 interceptor ahead, at least till that factory gets unpaused. And he is dropping the other side as well. So a little bit late on the drops, but, you know, it's better late than never. Here come the Mantis, though. If those engineers cannot get something down to deny those Mantis, then those engineers are going to be nigh on useless. Still not expanding to this side, which is a little unfortunate. And we do have a collision on the right. That has been scouted now. Those tanks need to draw back and clump up so that these Mantis streaming in are not that much of a challenge. Basically got 2 versus 1 engagement there, and all of those strikers are going to die, and die horrible deaths, although we are starting to see a stronger flow of units coming from red. So hopefully this is not going to be a total loss for Coding Squirrel. This is pretty much already lost, I think. There are 2 engineers down here that are building some really sneaky land factories. That's going to go completely unnoticed, I think. The only mole is way on this side, and we've got several minutes before the next mole shows up. And the tide of units has been broken. Coding Squirrel pushing those Mantis and Medusa back just a little bit. But now we have the opposite problem. Red is streaming units into a clump of blue. So that is going to not end very well. It usually doesn't. I cannot emphasize enough how much I love this sneaky little group of land factories. This is going to be hilarious when those finally come into play. But we do have a little bit more of a problem down here on the left side of the base. Coding Squirrel has let a few units in, and now they are streaming into the base. This is not going to end well if he doesn't get a handle on this, although with the T1 bombers in the area, he should be able to handle it reasonably well. This is where Stork probably would have done well to clump up a group of 10 or so Mantis up here, although the clump Mantis would fare even worse against the bombers, so maybe not, and force those units in, because now we have clumps of tanks for Coding Squirrel. That's going to easily eliminate those Mantis without too much damage coming their way. There's anti-air Mantis killing off 2, 3, 4 interceptors. Not good at all. You do not want to lose your Air Force like that. It's pretty much the worst thing that could possibly happen. Now we have units entering the fray from those 3 factories down there. And if that clues in the blue to what's going on in this corner, it may not live much longer. There was a brief little naval engagement here. 1 frigate was lost for Coding Squirrel, but now it looks like we've got much stronger production for Stork than for Coding. He's got 3 factories, the same as his opponent, but only 3 engineers assisting, whereas we have about 20 on that north side. And then we're starting to see the horrible, horrible things that happen when you do not match your opponent's build power. This has been overrun now, but the bombers are still trying to pick off all of those Mantis. This is a little bit bigger concern on this side, though. Again, that's 9 factories versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. So double the build power. Even if you're working with about the same amount of mass, your unit flow on this side is going to be significantly stronger. And now we're going to see a little bit of naval denial, or at least an attempt. We've got 2 torpedo launchers down, but with the last frigate dying right there, it's going to leave it to a single solitary T1 sub and those 2 torpedo defenses to defend the bay, and I don't think that is going to be adequate. Hero Mantis killing 2 mass extractors in the back, and then another Mantis killing that one right there. Finally, that unit's going to get cleaned up, and we're waiting on the death of this Mantis. Hopefully it doesn't do any more damage, because it's already got 5 freaking kills under its belt. Got a veterancy. How often do you see a T1 tank with a veterancy? It's kind of odd how much those things die back and forth and back and forth. Come out and die as soon as they get in business. But look at this. We've got a Salem. This is not good for Coding Squirrel. Coding Squirrel is sitting on about 51 income. He's got 10,000 reclaim under his belt. Stork has 14,000 and 75 income. So Stork is ahead in every single way. In income, in tech level, in build power. This is going to be a tough son of a gun to come back from for Coding Squirrel, especially when you got that stupid destroyer sitting there wrecking your naval production. This is ideal. Coding Squirrel has packed his units into a glob. We've got Mantis streaming through a narrow gap. And that is going to be a far inferior number of UEF tanks, defeating about twice their group size in Mantis, just because all of the Mantis are strung out so very much. And these point defenses were a little bit of a hero. 8, 4, and 10, but the majority of those kills are on these units. 3 and 1, 2, 2, 5. Lots of kills on those sons of guns. Looks like the Salems are going to come ashore. I think that's a mistake. Salems on shore usually get swarmed by T1 and immediately die. And it looks like that's exactly what's happening here. Coding Squirrel moving his tanks back into his land area right here. And yeah, those Salems are going to start taking Lobo fire. Not good at all. 32, 31, 29, and dropping rapidly. I don't think those 2 Salems are long for this world. I do see 2 T2 gunships. That's a nice little play there. And these factories are still in business. We're starting to get a few more online. Coding Squirrel very, very slowly making a little bit of progress here, but there's still just so many units streaming through this portion that even though they're not clumped up, there's still enough to take on these small groups of units that are coming out of those couple of factories. Stinger's working on this group of Mantis, slowly but surely eating their way through them. If only there was a competing Air Force. I don't think there is, actually. Nope. Looks like Coding Squirrel is in control of the air, and Stork is in control of the water. He's got 2 additional Salems in the bay, even though these 2 were killed off. Please don't come ashore again. Don't make the same mistake twice. That's what you don't want to do. Coding Squirrel doing a good job of clumping his units up again. This is where you really, really need to move to T2 at some point. Although I do like the gunships. They are cleaning up this neck of the woods. I say that, and there's not any woods anywhere. Way to go, Brink, on your extremely misplaced metaphorical statements. T2 on a map like this is incredibly powerful because you have all of these narrow necks of land where you have restricted passageways. You can see how well clumped up T1 does versus streaming T1. Well, it is exponentially more powerful with T2 units because only a small number of T1 can get in range of that T2 tank at one time, and then the T2 tanks just own them because they have such a higher mass density. I find it hilarious how many gunships these 2 Salems have killed. The anti-air is quite impressive on the Salems. You typically don't think of it that much, but it is more than enough to drop a handful of gunships versus 1 or 2 of the Salems. One of the strengths of the Cyber and T2 Navy. We've got 31 kills and 38 kills on those Salems. That is monstrous. But it looks like the tide is finally turning in favor of Coating Squirrel. Coating Squirrel was able to use those gunships to absolutely waste those units in the neck. Unfortunately, cruisers have been able to take out all of the gunships, but the damage is done. Looks like Coating Squirrel now has enough units to challenge the build power that Stork has at his disposal. Dropped 2 factories, dropping another, and that is probably going to mark the end of Stork's domination on the right hand of this neck. Same thing is happening on the left. There's finally enough factories online in this portion of the map to challenge the 7 that Stork has feeding this neck. So that is going to give Coating Squirrel some more access to reclaim. Holy hell, look at all of the reclaim there. Please, please get some engineers on that side. Now, all of these T1 units that were withdrawn to kill off those Salems are going to move back. And Coating Squirrel, whose economy is in absolute shambles thanks to those 2 Salems, is going to have to start rebuilding. Thankfully, he gained enough ground in that little bit of space to where I don't think he can be forced all the way back into his spawn. Let's take a look at the reclaim numbers now. That is going to be 26,000 reclaim and rapidly ticking upwards for Coating Squirrel, who is on about 91-ish income. A lot of that is reclaim. And then we've got 59-ish for Stork, who has got 23 in his hands. 28 now for Coating Squirrel, who is power stalling as well, thanks to all of that reclaim. So these guys are... The advantage used to be towards Stork for reclaim, and now it is slowly swinging in favor of Coating Squirrel. Maybe he'll be able to reclaim his way out of this, but he still does not have a T2 land factory. He still is struggling to maintain his grasp, and he still does not have any navy. However, he has built T2 navy on the outside of the Locket. This is both really, really cool and a little bit odd, because the cruiser support on the outside is going to be a devastating tool at Coating Squirrel's disposal to try to eliminate some of the economy up here, kill off the T2 factory, bombard the inner ring with those TAC missiles. But Stork is well equipped to deal with it because he can take all of his Salems, he can walk across the closest neck of land, and he can actually feed both sides of the war with factories only on the inside of the ocean. So it's going to be interesting to see if Stork thinks to put a couple destroyers out, because since Coating Squirrel is only building, well, there's T2 engineers coming out. It looks like he was queuing cruisers mostly. Let's actually take a look. Yes, 25 cruisers. Cruisers will die to Salems. One Salem can kill a near infinite amount of UEF cruisers as long as you take the care to micro. The T1 units are still flowing though. Coating Squirrel trying to force his way up into the neck a little bit farther each time. Cruiser is laying in fire on these units. Remember that the UEF cruiser has 2 health on each of its TAC missiles as opposed to 1 on the Seraphim cruiser. So it's going to take 2 hits from TAC defense to drop each missile. Simon Cruiser simply cannot put it out for a target that far in front of it. And so all of those missiles are going to impact and kill a couple of frigates there. Nicely done, Coating Squirrel. On the right-hand side, Stork is overwhelming his opponent once again. We've got 7 factories on this side, plus 2 down here in the neck, which are kind of more focused on getting some engineers out and rebuilding this portion of the map. So we've got 7 factories versus 6. I would have actually thought that Red would do a little bit better than that, but the advantage swings back and forth, I suppose, because one side attacks streaming into a clump, and then when it runs out of units, the other side attacks streaming into a clump. And so it just kind of goes back and forth and back and forth, and you watch the ping and you watch the pong, and everybody gets dizzy. On the left side, we're advancing again. Actually, there's another Salem that made landfall and died a hopeless death, stranded in the land. This is kind of the thing where land units getting stranded out in the water where you have hover units to just get completely outmatched by Navy and that kind of thing. It's a sad thing to watch. And then Cybern actually has the disadvantage of getting in the opposite boat. Haha. Unintentional puns. Leaving its naval units stranded on the land. I honestly do not know how this is going to go, and I don't know why no one has upgraded to T2 land, because of either one of these guys, hot damn, there it is. Hallelujah! Actually, it's going straight for a T3 factory, but I wish you would get some assistance on that, because it needs to happen quickly. Whichever one of these guys starts pumping out higher tier units is going to take this. Because all it'll take is a clump of T2 units or a clump of T3 units to ram all the way through either one of these sides from either direction. I do like Coding Squirrel's chances, though, because all of these factories are paused, probably because Stork is struggling for some power. He is coming back up there, and he's now going to be hurting for mass once the cruisers are tearing through those mass extractors. He has paused his factories, and that means that these tanks, few though they may be, are free to damage all of those land factories. And all of these are probably going to totally wipe out the build power on that side and close out that base. It has been so even for so long, and now the left side is looking to favor Coding Squirrel completely, and the right side has been partially broken. It is not done yet, but Coding Squirrel has definitely lost ground on the right. I really think that needs some torpedo bombers. Ah, you're building them! Coding Squirrel, good man, good man. This is a critical misplacement of that ACU. Coding Squirrel has by no means beaten Stork yet, and if that ACU was up here in the base somewhere, able to hold back the tide of units, assist with a little bit of build power or a little bit of combat presence, I think Stork has this still well in hand. He has so much Navy. He can push his sailors to the outside and kill those cruisers. I think he just hasn't thought of it. Coding Squirrel is throwing out the good game, and I think that's actually accurate because Stork has no air, and we've now got 5 torpedo bombers and more coming on that ACU, and the ACU is way the hell too far away from land to walk to safety. That is a depressing way to die. Stranded out in the water, cruisers all around your ACU, you can't get a transport out there. Ugh. He is building a transport, but that's going to get shot down. I know it. And there goes the commander. Nuclear oblivion embracing the ACU pilot. Stork, I'm done with this map. Here's my personal theory. These guys went toe-to-toe for so freaking long. They had relatively even reclaim numbers. No, actually, I take that statement back. Coding Squirrel stomped the reclaim number out of the water because he was able to clean up these expansions. So kudos to Coding Squirrel for just about doubling the reclaim value of Stork. Way to stick your foot in your mouth, Brink. Anyway, these guys were even for so long sparring back and forth, and it was really the misplaced ACU that did it, and lacking in the build power on this side once Coding Squirrel got all of his crap together and started just pouring an overwhelming number of units into the left side. I think what happened was Stork burned out, and this is a problem that a lot of people have on big maps, where they perform really, really well at the T1 stage, at the T2 stage, maybe even the early T3 stage, but trying to focus on a big map, spreading your attention out, trying to keep focused on everything, it just hammers you mentally. And if you're not used to that kind of multitasking, then eventually you hit the point where your brain just goes, nope, not anymore, I'm done, and then you collapse. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this game at least a little bit. Please send me your replays. I know I'm always asking, but I do desperately need your help on that one. And I will see you guys in the next one.